Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about Elden Ring NightReign. And this is basically going to be my full review. There might be some updates on my YouTube channel a little bit, but I think I've played and gone as far as I basically can in the game. And we're going to dig into basically what the game is. We're going to dig into um, a lot of the gameplay mechanics and kind of how they are. We're going to kind of skid over those, but we're also going to go over some of the biggest problems, and we're also going to look at player behavior with how they're playing. So let's go ahead and dig in, folks, because yeah, this will be kind of a bit of a long one, I think. I'll make it as short as it possibly can, though. So we're basically 3 weeks after launch now. I got about 13 and a half hours in the game, and I'm actually stuck, which is kind of a bummer to say. So disclosure, I play on Xbox, and I was also a part of the closed beta, and several of my concerns in the closed beta are also in the game by game design alone. So the game is very similar to what a lot of people would expect maybe from a FortNite or Apex, or even kind of like an extraction shooter for those that haven't played. It's basically a time crunch to level up. You take out as many enemies as possible, you level up along the way, and then you have 3 separate nights to engage a final boss, and each final boss gets harder for your play session for every day that you make it. Until you get to the very end of the third day, the third night, you have a boss that we haven't seen before. Almost all of the assets in the game, including the weapons, the armor, to a degree, and a lot of the enemies, and even just the environment of what it looks like, the map that you play on, it's all basically from Elden Ring or even like Dark Souls 3. And it's all kind of sprinkled throughout a little bit. But yeah, basically you drop in on the edge of the map, and you slowly work your way toward the center as a ring closes in around you. And if you're outside the ring, you actually burn to death, right? Just like you would in Fortnite or Apex or whatever else. And eventually you get down to a ring for the boss fight where you and your team are going to fight. Some of the bosses that you're going to have during the gameplay is that there's always going to be multiple almost every single time. And then as you work through the night, usually your second night, sometimes even your first night in the game, you're actually going to have at least 2 bosses on top of like a lot of other little enemies and stuff. So yeah, you're always going to be fighting, maybe 10 to 20 at a time, depending, which sounds crazy, I know, but that's kind of just how most of the bosses are for this game. There are a few where they are very powerful, like Moog, and you're just going to fight Moog, right? And there's not going to be anything else because, again, he's so powerful. And the bosses at the end, too, they basically just have themselves, except for one. There's actually a pair of them, and that is actually a pretty frustrating fight. And as for, like, the RNG is okay. Sometimes you can really get screwed in the game because the game just isn't really giving you anything. It can be pretty frustrating as well to find all of the right items. So yeah, you're just opening all of the chests that you can to find the type of items that you want, either to level up your weapon or to actually find a better weapon than what you have. You also are rushing through the entire experience, again, to level up, to find as much as you can, to give your best chances of winning at the very end of the session on your last night, so that you can actually win. You can actually beat something. So yeah, there is a solo mode, which again is very difficult. It doesn't really feel scaled down that much at all, and it has been updated that every enemy that you kill, you're able to get more souls to continue to level up in the game. But yeah, everything in the game too has just been completely streamlined, from movement to combat to looting to leveling up to, I mean, everything. Again, everything is being as efficient as you possibly can in every aspect of the game so that you can have your best chances for beating the final boss. But this really isn't the biggest factor in playing. It's your team. So it's great to have friends, okay? And it's usually bad to have randoms. And that's generally the consensus for a lot of us. Most people, they're still struggling getting past the first boss. So people that have had friends to play with, they're probably done with the game already. They've probably had their 2 or 3 weeks. They've beaten all of the bosses, and now they're waiting for other stuff, which another thing just dropped, where you have enhanced final bosses now. So they're actually more difficult. So yeah, some people are starting to jump back in. Especially, we can see that on PlayStation, and also we can see that over on Steam a little bit. But yeah, for those that haven't really made it to that stage yet, they're going to be kind of somewhat left behind. But yeah, the issue that players are having ultimately is they're fighting their team the way the game is designed. So there are no duos. So even if you have you and another buddy, you still have to have a third person in there. And there's still no proximity chat or game chat of any kind. And again, this is not crossplay, so you're expected to probably just use Discord, use a party chat or something on console, which is perfectly fine. But again, the randoms don't actually join in most cases. You send them an invite and they don't come in, and so again, you're just stuck with a silent party. And then you're either all fighting of where you guys should go, or nobody is leading at all, and so yeah, you're just completely damning your experience. And there's no way you're even going to probably get past the first actual boss your first day with the session. So you feel like you really wasted your time. There's also stability issues with the game too. There's problems with people disconnecting, and technically you can come back, but by then people have also already left. People are also leaving when they feel like there's no way we're going to beat the final boss, so I'm not going to waste my time anymore. Lion and I even had somebody that ended up was not able to get the class that they wanted because one of us had already picked it, yours truly, and so they just left. I mean, this is honestly becoming one of the most toxic communities that I've actually seen, because at least with Fortnite or Call of Duty, you can still have that level of progression. You can still work toward weapons and attachments, or you can still work toward skins or doing ranked or something. Like, there's still something to work toward, even when the community is not great, right? But in this case, so much hinges on your teamwork. And when you have a community that is all kind of, when you have just some players that are completely in it for themselves, it completely destroys the experience. And there's just not much you can do about that. And it's not like, too, if you're in session and somebody just quits, there's no way to really scale the game down. The game is still scaled for two of you. And again, there's just no way to win. Or if both leave, again, you're just by yourself. And yeah, it's basically then completely impossible. Because then you don't have any of the perk benefits of playing solo, because you're not playing solo, you're playing with three. So we do know that duos is coming at some point, but we don't have a date yet. And I do think it'll be a while, but hopefully sometime in the fall is when we'll actually get it. Maybe toward the end of the summer, September, October, I'm hoping is when we'll actually get it. Because if it's going to be past that, I'm not really sure if anyone is actually still going to be playing. But yeah, the whole way that everything is built and designed with NightReign is it has some unforeseen consequences. And even the people that are talking about it in their reviews lately, that are even talking about their experiences with the game, they're like, yeah, basically, I don't play with randoms. Or I didn't buy the game because I couldn't have any of my friends agree to buy it either. So I'm just not playing. It's like so much hinges on having friends with this game and actually order to play. But yeah, the community is just becoming more and more toxic, I feel like, every week that goes on with this game. And that's gravely unfortunate because, again, we never felt that with the other FromSoftware games. But again, the whole design was different. It was your story where people, if they chose to, could come into your game and help you. Everybody knew the assignment. And now we're at a point where everybody maybe has different assignments, or they're trying to do different remembrances, or they're just trying to finally beat their boss, right? And that conflict is not appreciated in the team. It is probably the most hated thing across all NightReign players is having to fight your team and ultimately waste your time, because that's how it feels. That's why they're leaving. That's why they're backing out as quickly as they can and moving on to something else. So far, I've made it past the first boss, and then this is where I'm actually stuck. I can't actually get to another boss, again, with 13 and a half hours. But the thing that I find most interesting, too, is, again, the game design and how this is actually made. So you actually beat the first boss, which everyone's on, right? And then you work on having 6 other bosses that are in parallel. not in series. So anyone can choose any boss at any time. So you're taking your entire player base that's made it past the first boss and then splitting it 6 more ways. And then you're still splitting it among time zones. And you're still continuing to split among classes because you can't have the same classes, right, necessarily in the same game. Though I guess that doesn't necessarily really affect it too much because all 3 of you go into a queue and then you all pick right there. So yeah, never mind on that one. But you're still splitting your player base, and it's kind of crazy how far you're splitting it. Because yeah, I worked on doing some math. Let's say on Xbox, it's the least played platform, right? Least amount of console sales. Let's say out of 3.5, 4 million copies sold by now, let's say they have about 800,000 players total. Well, by the time you're done dividing everything, by looking at achievements currently on Xbox, there's roughly like 65,000 players that are potentially queuing in with your game. And this is if the player count actually stays the same. As the player count drops, you're, again, going to continue to lose more and more while you're splitting the community on what type of bosses are queuing into. And so, yeah, you can sit there for over 10 minutes waiting for somebody. Some people have reported, again, like 30 minutes waiting to actually find somebody with them and a buddy. So they're just looking for one person for 30 minutes. Like, that's kind of insane. Lion and I, our last try, we waited somewhere between 5 to 10. So normally it was like 5, 6 minutes, maybe 7, 8 minutes, somewhere in there we could actually find somebody. But again, the frustration of just fighting your team, it's definitely a real thing. And that's horrible. And now that we have enhanced fights, we're splitting it even further. When the DLC comes out, we're even splitting it further. So like every future update for this game for content is just going to further split more and more and more people, from what I understand it. Because the enhanced boss fights, well, they're not like the regular ones. They're basically the same. You're going for the same boss, but they're scaled up. And you can't have players that haven't gotten to that point yet. Like, you're not going to be able to have 2 different scales, really, with the same game. Some games do that, but again, if we don't even have game chat in NightReign, I highly doubt that's actually how they're making the game. And again, that's just my assumption. But with how we're splitting stuff, to go from almost 1 million players down to 65,000 at the end of the day, potentially, on average, is kind of crazy, because you're leaving so much of the player base behind as you're moving forward, and then it will continue to just get worse. So the ultimate scores right now, we can just take a look. Xbox is 3.9 out of 5. It's actually gone up a few tenths. But this currently, too, is NightReign. So whether people have actually quit the game, whether people have actually finished the game, regardless, they're just not playing right now. And even with the update of the enhanced boss fights, that's released. But again, like a lot of the players haven't really come back yet. I think that released a few days ago, last week. And we had a ton of players, 313,000, a player peak of 117, and right now we're at 74. Now, when I'm recording this is a Tuesday, this is a weekday, and yeah, the weekends, as we can see, they usually are definitely higher. I mean, we're looking at, let's see, what's this one? 158,000. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good jump back. But it is crazy, though, how many people have already fallen off in just 3 weeks. Something I want to say, too, is this also does not include all of the players that have not bought in the game. So we'll get into that, too, after we cover a little bit more. But currently, we're sitting at a 79 out of 109,000 reviews, which is a ton. And this has actually gone up, too, because we were in the 60s at launch. And then we're at a 79 right now. If we take a look at PlayStation Time Tracker, it's currently number 5 in hours played in the last 30 days. Ownership is about 6.7% out of all of the accounts that they're tracking, which is a little over 13,000 accounts. And then if we take a look at actual players, yeah, we have a little over 1,000 players, and there's a few actually on PlayStation 4. So I really feel bad for those guys because unless they have friends, they're probably not going to be able to find randoms. Because again, none of this is cross-platform, cross-gen. It's just you're stuck with your console, and that's your community. So for those that actually bought this on last-gen hardware, I really feel for those guys. We're taking a look too at again the hours played, and also so green is players, purple blue is sessions, and then red is actually hours played. And as you can see, we had that massive spike for launch, right? A few days after launch when we hit that first weekend, ton of players actually playing. But as you can see, it actually curtailed off pretty quickly as the days went by. And even getting into the next weekends, a lot of those players just didn't show back up. So at the start, we had players max out at 442 at any given time on PSN out of these that are tracked, and then it went down to 260 out of the accounts that are tracked, and that's a massive decrease. So we'll see if players really come back for the enhanced boss battles, but what I'm seeing is that, you know, we roughly have 20% of the people that are playing Elden Ring, NightReign, just quitting, giving it a 1, giving it a 2 out of 5, and are just not enjoying the game whatsoever. The mechanics, the way it's designed, is just incredibly frustrating because you feel like you're fighting your team and you're fighting communication a heck of a lot more than the actual game itself. And then again, if we're toxifying our community now with people leaving and quitting and not willing to be actually part of the team, they're just in it for themselves, that is just decreasing, unfortunately, the experience. And yeah, you know, this is really frustrating. I really don't see it improving over time, even with the DLC. I don't think a lot of people are going to play it, and because again, they're not enjoying the game. So I don't know. I would be leery if you're actually thinking about buying the DLC again, unless you already have friends to play with, because you don't want to be stuck just holding a $15 bag and not being able to use it. But let's talk too about how many people from FromSoftware, like let's say from Elden Ring, have actually gotten into NightReign. So out of the people that have bought NightReign, about 80% like it. The other 20% don't. So that's a pretty big discrepancy, especially for a Dark Souls game, right? And then when we look at Elden Ring, they've sold about 30 million copies at $60 or $70, depending on what version you bought. And the price also, too, didn't really go down that quickly. This one, we're looking at probably 4 million copies sold now at this point. Maybe 4.5, maybe 5. I think that's optimistic. Against 30 million copies sold from just the previous game. So there's a lot of people that didn't even opt to buy in on a $40 game. We should have seen a pretty good carryover. So like a lot of people were not interested in this to begin with, judging just by the player numbers. Now, yeah, again, maybe we'll actually get to 5 million, but I don't think we'll really get past that. Because again, NightReign has had its little bloom on YouTube and everywhere else, and the player counts and the videos, they just completely dropped off. There's almost nothing after 3 weeks. And so, yeah, I think taking a look at everything, taking a look at player counts, numbers, taking a look at scores, taking a look at previous sales for Elden Ring, versus potentially how many players could have bought in versus how many did. This is not necessarily a well-liked game in the FromSoftware community. And I think this is also going to be an issue, too, for DuskBloods. Because, again, it is literally just on Switch 2. And if we only have a few million Switches sell by then, or maybe we get to 10 million by then, how many people are actually going to play the game? Because now you got to pay $60, $70 for DuskBloods. You also got to buy the console and maybe some other peripherals, and also NSO to actually be able to play an online game. And so that's a lot of money for one game. And I honestly don't think a lot of people are going to play it based off of the experience that people have been having with NightReign, and also off of just how many people from that bought Elden Ring that didn't buy NightReign. There's a pretty big difference there. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, my overall score with everything is that it's a 5 out of 10. It's mid. And it's simply mid because the frustration with how the game is made and the way it's designed, it means it's not changing much in the future, too. And the stuff that was talked about and communicated during the closed beta, not just by me, but by a lot of other players that were playing, they chose not to put that in the final release of the game either, which is just kind of backwards. And again, we still don't have game chat. We still don't have duos. And we're 3 weeks into the game now. It's like, guys, we have been telling you guys since like February. February, March. We've been telling you guys for a long time, hey, this is the way it needs to be made and designed. And again, they're just not doing that. And that doesn't feel like FromSoftware. They're making some changes. They're making some adjustments. But it's like, this is how the game is going to be. And personally, if you have friends to play it with, it'll be a great experience. If you like the Battle Royale type of experience, or the extraction shooter type of experience, I think this will be pretty fun. And yeah, some people, they really, really enjoy it. And I gotta agree, when it does a good job, when it works as intended, when things coalesce and come together, it's amazing. It is a blast. It is really fun. But again, that's only maybe 20% or less of the time out of my entire 13 and a half hours. And personally, it's just not really worth my time. Not for me, anyway. And yeah, with the scores, I'm not the only one that thinks that. So if you're thinking of buying it, kind of take some time to think about, if you have friends to play with, if you're okay with no game chat, if you're okay with a lot of your time failing or being worthless or whatever. But again, I feel like this is kind of a niche product for the FromSoftware community. And if you already don't like Dark Souls games, you may not like this either. So, I don't know. There's other reviews out there. I suggest that you guys work on taking the time to check them out, watch some gameplay. But the fact that this game is already falling off as quickly as it is, the fact that this game has only sold as many copies as it has in its first month when the potential is 30 million players, is kind of surprising at a $40 price point. And the scores, too. And then we're going to continue to have dividing, the player base with enhanced boss battles, with the DLC when it comes out later this year. And I just think the game's going to be dead before we even get to the end of the year. I don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think? Have you played it? Is it not something you're interested in? Are you excited for DuskBloods? Because, I'm curious about that too. I'll track it here on the channel. You can always follow me at GamingGarbage22 over at YouTube. We also got playlists. There's a bunch of stuff there. Myriad of different stuff. And then you can also follow me at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee if you like. And when I'm playing actual games, then I'll chat with you guys. So, this is ultimately kind of a disappointment. But I was worried about some of this stuff. I saved up some Microsoft money and only paid $20. And for me personally, I'm glad I did. Is it worth $20? Yeah, it's worth $20. But would I want to pay full price? No, not at this point. Not until they actually maybe put duos in the game or actually tweak some other stuff. But this is how they've made it. This is how they've designed it. And this is probably how it's going to stay. If you're hoping for a change, we're probably not really going to get that. So with that, folks, thanks for tuning in. You can always, again, follow me, all that jazz. And I'll see you guys on the next one.